absolutely a Shazam poof calling out, asking if numbers committee is watching. He says, "I'm too good. I have a hat trick. You can't stop me." Let's see. He's still down by a goal.
That's a bold move. Let's see how it plays out.
He's gonna transition into it.
Jamie with the long ball. That's going to be off the backboard. The Devil and the goalie. Enigma with the goal. That's going to be the dagger for sure. 20.
Over to Viglio from Judgmental. Viglio gets the first touch, can't get the second. Judgmental puts it into no man's land. Canadian Things there now with a lot of boost to work with. Air dribble towards it. Canadian Things with that game winner.
Ray waiting for it. Ball out in no man's land. Gets up. Gets the extra touch. Throws it through. Oh my gosh. Ray with the LOB putting in work like that's his JOB. And I cannot believe that is a one-man wrecking ball.
Watch out. Beck's really proven to be a game changer in this best of 7 here. A shot maybe coming down from Nautical, not able to read that touch from DQ though, and off, trying to get another touch. DQ dumps it down. Don't forget, this is match point.
Good evening, RSC fans. Joining us for week 8 of the Pre-Jump podcast. We label this new faces because we've got 2 new faces once again with us here. Joining us for the night are, for the first time ever, one of the People's Champions roles, Mr. Humdinger, GM of the Metal franchise. Returning with us here, we've got Rob. Hum, why don't you go ahead and give us a little bit about yourself before we transfer into our guest star for the week?
Yeah, howdy everybody. K-Flip, Hum does not suck. Thank you for that. I see the hashtag Hum sucks, but that's not going to be here today. I'm a member of the Pre-Jump podcast. So I've been RSC for a couple of seasons now. I love doing podcast stuff like this. I listen to quite a few myself, Joe Rogan a little bit, but not so sure that's a great role model. Anyways, happy to be here. Happy to be on set with a bunch of you guys. This is my first time being on camera. I'm really excited and hopefully we'll have a great show.
For sure. You know, as long as everybody acts casual, we'll be fine. We'll have a good show, have a good week 8. But let's go ahead and get into our guest star. As a lot of you know, we went ahead and put out a form. Everybody could apply, get put in for it. We voted. We selected Yul Brenna here. Of the Geek Ghouls and the Elites here last season, Solar MVP, handyman for the season, 0.89 assists per game. Yul, outside of really the basic stats for how you're performing, go ahead and let our audience know a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. First off, hey everyone, thanks for having me on and selecting me as the first guest host. Pretty fun. I'm Yul Brenna. I've been playing in RSC since really season 5. I took a couple seasons off when I started a family. Probably one of my last seasons will be this one. But I've played in Elite and Vet or Major back when it was called that. But I've been in pretty much Tree Frogs franchise the whole time, or Ncreds now I think took over that franchise. Last season played in Vet, came back after a break. Solar MVP, like you said, it was on a top team. We kind of lost our mojo and didn't get to playoffs, but promoted to Elite on a team where I'm captain now, and I've kind of worked with Banshee now in this franchise. We've built our team from the ground up, and we're having a lot of fun. We're a top 6 team, so I'd say it's a success so far. Yeah.
Well, for sure. I mean, 18-10, obviously successful team. Obviously keeping up there in the top quarter of players in general. So, You know, all the power to you there.
Yeah, thanks.
You know, I've got our introductions underway here. I think everybody knows who Rob, the false GM, is. Everybody knows who I am. So we'll go ahead. We'll roll in pretty quickly into our top 10 standings for the week. Let's go ahead and pop into the first here. We're going to get into Amy here. Once that pops up, good. I can still read. Life's good. So, Amy, only having 8 teams, pretty simple here. We're going to go ahead and pop into rank number 1 in the pole position, Cathilla at 19-9. In second place, we've got Brass, who are 18-10. In third place, we've got Surprise at 16-12. In fourth place, we've got Elastic at 14-14. In fifth place, we've got the Rollers, who are 13-15. In sixth place, we've got Sacrifice, who are 12-16. In seventh place, we've got Faye, who are 11-17. And then in eighth place, we've got House Salads, who are 9-19 here. So that rounds out pretty much all of your AMI standings. I know we're gonna deep dive a little bit into this later here, but Cathilla, obvious takeaways. They're 19-9. They're killing it for Emmy, right, guys?
Yeah, honestly, my amateur team, Brass, just played them and lost 1-3. Top of the table battle. Hopefully, they'll get to see each other again later in the season and in the final. But at a captain meeting and player meeting with my players after that, and Cathilla are the real deal. They've got some pretty good players on that team. Obviously, just a top team to go 19-9, and I don't think they're going to be slowing down. So hopefully, Brass can do some catching up.
Yeah, definitely. I think not only did they play against Brass, but they 3-1 the other top team in the league too. So, there's only 8 teams in this tier. They play each other twice, so it's going to be another go around for all these teams to really improve on what they did the first half of the season.
Personally, I think the largest takeaway from looking at this table is that you have the best team name in all of RSC. For the elements, you have the element of surprise, and I think that is simply they may be only third in standings, right? But they might be the favorite just off name alone.
I think we've agreed upon this in previous weeks. That's clearly the best team name in like all of RSC. I mean, the element of surprise, quite frankly, greatest element, but also greatest team name. So like I'm just saying objectively on pace there. But for sure, I think that rounds out Emmy. We'll get into this a little bit more as we're going to deep dive this tier later on tonight. Let's go ahead and roll though into contender and talk about the top 10 there. Obviously, few more teams, so we actually have a full top 10 here. In first place, we've got Dagon, who are 25-3. In second place, we've got Ionic, who are 23-5. In third place, we've got the Samurai, who are 16-12. And then in a 3-way tie for fourth place, we've got Ice, Scooters, and Cheese Pizza, all tied at 14-14. Tied for seventh place, we've got Devoured and Drakes at 13-15, and then tied for ninth place, rounding out the top 10 here, we've got Aluminum and Hippie Haunters, both at 10-18. And guys, as I'm looking at this here, it's a steep drop off. Dagon and Ionic are 25-3, 23-5, respectively, but they're 7 games above third place. They're 7 games over Samurai. That's insane.
Yeah, looking at them, they are kind of just in a different class of their own. And we'll get into this later on in the podcast. But some of the more advanced numbers that we keep for our league say some very, very good things about both of those teams. So I'm excited to see who ends up ending the season hotter, right? 25-3 and 23-5 are both absurd. But, like, who's going to win that battle? And then they're both in Lunar. So just they don't even get to meet in the finals, right? So it'll be interesting to see what happens in contender this season.
Yeah, and Rob, just highlighting that Lunar playoff hunt right now, you got Dagon at 25-3, Ionic at 23-5, and then Samurai at 16-12. The best record in the Solar Conference right now wouldn't even make playoffs in Lunar. They're only 14-14. That's just some crazy Lunar dominance right there. It'll be interesting to see how playoffs turn out.
Yeah, no, I definitely think that's kind of the fun part. And I think for Solar's side, that's what makes that playoff race pretty interesting. I mean, Ice and Devoured, they're gonna be, they're the 2 top teams, but again, only one is 500, one's below. But they both face each other this week, and that'll be pretty exciting to see who can take command of that conference.
For sure. And I think that's a great conversation about contender. But before we jump into prospect here, y'all, are you wearing a Squirtle shirt? I just want to know.
Yeah, it's a pocket monster. It's Squirtle. Yeah.
Okay. Just making sure. I had to clarify here. I saw me on Display's post there in the chat, and I just couldn't go past it.
I'm actually getting a Squirtle Squad tattoo with a friend at some point in the next couple months. So if you want to toss me a link to that shirt, I will not mind. Thanks for letting me know in advance.
I'll have to take a look. It was a while ago, I think, at like a Comic-Con that I got it. So I'll see if I can find it for sure.
That's
for
awesome.
sure. Now, jumping into prospect here, unlike Rob, I'm gonna ignore that card you got there. Jumping into prospect here, unlike contender, there's a lot more parity across the board. Prospect starting us off in first place, tied for first. We've got the Munster Misfits and Dark Matter, both at 18 and 10. Tied for third place in a 4-way tie, we've got Pulse, the Fruit Salad, the Spaghetti Scouts, and Whiskey Business, all 17 and 11. In seventh place, we've got Earth at 16 and 12, and then tied for eighth place, Undead and Bokrug. We've got 15 and 3. And then in 10th place, rounding out our top 10, we've got the Detention Demise, who are 14 and 14. And, something we talked about with Contender being so much of a runaway with 3 teams in Lunar clearly dominating. This one, yes, the top 3 are Lunar, but first place and 10th place are separated by 4 games.
That's one series.
I would just like to say that Dark Matter has actually played 8 games without arguably their best player, who's been up in my Chally team, who's 5 and 3 with a 50+ SBV, right? So this guy is the real deal for Prospect, and they're 18 and 10 playing 8 games without him, right? So it is close, but is it really? If you look a little deeper into it, who knows?
Am I hearing homerism in Prospect in the info dump already? Like, that sounds like some solid homerism going on here.
I think so.
Sounds like I'm making some good points.
Well, Fruit Salad's going to be coming for you. There's a reason they're not named Iron anymore, and that's I made a small bet with my Prospect team last season that if they ended up winning the championship, I'd name them to Fruit Salad, and lo and behold, Game 7 comes around, they crush it. So Fruit Salad looking to go back-to-back, hopefully.
I would. This is it's an important piece, which is that this is the finals matchup I'm looking for, because we actually both have a player who was on the team that won Contender the season prior. So it'll be and they both were all-stars, MVP ballot type guys. They're both killing it this season, Iro and Ethan. Going nuts in Prospect, and so if we could get that matchup, Lunar and Solar, maybe in the finals, that would be absolutely incredible to watch.
I'll see you there, Rob.
All right. Who does that bring us up to? Right? You're going to go ahead and walk us through the Chally top 10s?
Challenger next, yeah.
All righty.
There we go. As you can see, leading it off in Chally, Jack-o'-lanterns and Zombies are tied for first place at 20 and 8. That's pretty good, if I do say so myself. Quite a bit better than my own team. We're not on this list. Fusion is up next, tied with Strawberries for third place. Those teams are both 19 and 9. And we were talking about how there's a little bit of Lunar dominance before, but look at this top 4: 1 Solar, 1 Lunar, 1 Solar. All 4 from different divisions as well. Yep. And then going up next is Tarantulas in a 3-way tie with Void and Squalls, all at 18 and 10 at 5th place. And then at 8th place at 17 and 11, Toucans and the Breadsticks. And then in a 4-way tie for 10th. Sorry to Nebulade, Yig, and Shock. We couldn't get you on the graphic up there. But Griffins, you did made it. All 4 of you guys are tied at 10th place at 16 and 12. And even though we're not on the little graphic we got going here, I do want to give a little shout out to the Elements franchise challenger team Metal at 11 and 17. And then Metal's challenger team Steel at 10 and 18. We're going hard to fight for the one true Metal name. And hopefully we'll get that one extra win on them.
Okay.
That's a fun one. I would also like to say, shout out my guys, again, tied for that 10th place. Have been playing with a Prospect player for 8 match days. So just, both these teams, keep your eye on them. A little dark horse action for you.
Still winning their division, too. That's crazy.
Oh, man. I mean, of course, my shout out has to be to the Jack-o'-lanterns. That's my franchise right there. Doing great at the top. Love to see it.
For sure. And I got to shout out my franchise, Free Agency. Fantastic. Gang, let's go. Let's take us in the rifle before I
take us in the rifle. All right. So in our rival top 10, um, leading off with their first ever 2 losses on stream on Wednesday, I believe, against Lacuna, the 26-2 Hammerheads. That was, I believe, the longest standing time a team has gone undefeated in Rival since it was named Rival, at least, and most likely before that. They were 24-0 going into Wednesday, which is just absurd to think about. Following up just behind them, well, not just behind them, 5 games back from them is Polaris at 21-7 in second place. And then third place is Polar Ice, not Polaris, at 19-9. And then in a 5-way tie for fourth place, we have Carrots, Wind, Tort Reform, Werewolves, and the Dalmatians all at 18-10, all tied for fourth place. And then a 3-way tie again for ninth place, all at 17-11. We got the Hot Wings, Fangtooths, and Polar Bears. Polar Bears, sorry again for not getting you on the graphic. Just get better.
I do want to talk about, we talked about it last week where the Hammerheads were in a weird spot, right? Where they killed it to begin the season, but so did the Fangtooths last season. They started off 15-1, and then they dramatically over match days 5-6 went 1-7. They went 1-3 against the Eight-Legged Freaks on stream, and then they got 0-4'd by Chromium, yours truly, myself. Weird coincidence. I found out Hecka was the captain of that team, and I was like, "Hey, man, crazy that they collapsed, right?" And he goes, "Yeah, I was the captain of that team," and I'm like, "Oh, that's awkward." But what happened, bro? What happened?
I would like to
with
say
the Hammerhead. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Rod.
just interesting tidbit that you're about to get into. Possessed, right? That team we talked about in that vet deep dive had exactly what you just mentioned, a 1-7 week. So they went from 16-4 to now they're in the middle of the pack. So as you were just talking about, even this season, no matter how good your record is, right, it's never safe, right? You got to continue to play at that high level, and it's easy to get complacent and to lose that momentum.
For sure.
Yeah. Good point there from our producer crew. The Hammerheads were on stream watching that. So if you want to go and see the fall of a Titan, I believe RSC Streams keeps all their VODs. But one thing I did want to point out for Hammerheads is that they have, I believe, the player with the highest SBV in all of RSC. Shout out to Hybrid Paragon with 151.6 SBV. Now, granted, they have only played 2 games, but in those 2 games, they got 2 goals and 2 assists in each of them.
That sounds like a fake SBV if I've ever heard one. 2 games.
Small sample size for sure.
Oh, for sure.
As the player who had the highest SBV in any season in RSC history, I gotta say, I gotta see more games out of him.
Crazy.
Well,
crazy.
he's coming for that IDR too.
It was 56. I don't know.
Look, I just want to shout out Lacuna. They were 7-9 in the previous match days before going on stream and going 2-2 against the Hammerheads. Like that, the audacity to say, yeah, we'll play you guys on live stream, and then not to give up an 0-4 or a 1-3 is impressive. It takes a serious set of confidence from their players and trust in one another, and I'm impressed. I watched the games. I loved it. So just shout out to Lacuna there.
I also think, playing on stream, it's a great setup for playoffs. So for Hammerheads, this is a good example of you're going to be dealing with pressure, and everybody feels that this first time they play on stream, that pressure when, you're playing in front of a crowd rather than just, with your 3 other friends, and it's totally different. So play on stream and you'll get that playoff vibe of, oh, this is a little bit more. It ups the ante. And so, props to the other team, but Hammerheads, this is kind of a little bit of a wake-up call. I'm sure they'll steamroll a couple more teams, but, how to deal with pressure when it comes your way. Yeah. And before we finish up, I kind of we talked earlier about, that sputtering. The 2 teams I wanted to talk about were Werewolves, who are 15-5 in their last match day. So they're kind of climbing up there. And then on the other side, Dalmatians are 10-10 in their last. So they're kind of sputtering. So, like you said, in one week, all of a sudden you can go from a top team to falling down the ladder and becoming middle of the pack.
And while we're talking about those top teams, also shout out Chulane for taking a drink every time I mention the Cosmos. Take one more because my team is second in rival as well at 21 and 7.
All right. This guy. All right, Rob, why don't you get us moved into vet so we can keep this moving along, man?
Alrighty, moving
Oh, God,
into
they're
veteran.
seventh? God, gosh
Yep,
darn
you're gonna have to see me again.
it.
Moving into veteran, we have the Lightning in sole possession of first place at 22 and 6. Then the Cthulhu and the Dobermans tied for second at 20 and 8, and another two-way tie with the Sea Devils and the Peppers at just one game back at 19 and 9. Right behind them, you got the Gouda Gangsters, sole possession of sixth at 18 and 10, and the three teams tied behind them are Possessed, who we were talking about, 16 and 4 last week. The Calzones and my team, the Supernova, the ones that 4-0'd Possessed, actually, are all now 17 and 11. And in that four-way tie for that 10 spot, you have your Linguini Lancers, Titanium, Jaculus, and your Gladiators at 16 and 12. So a lot of parity at the top here.
Oh man, I actually did go peep ahead to see where the Cosmos were, see if I was going to get homered on again, and I, saw they were tied for seventh. It's, yeah.
Greatness speaks, man, and lucky
Great.
for
Okay.
me, I get to
Okay.
speak about my own teams in all 5 tiers that I got them, and numbers don't lie.
Well, I
That
will
said, there's a
say that
22 and 16, so we should talk
I'm
about
not
that.
exactly sure if all of these results are going to stand. Just looking back in the standings,
Oh.
Titanium and Linguini Lancers had a very, very hotly contested first game. It was a very long debacle that spread out over multiple days, but instead of Titanium and Linguini Lancers being tied at 16 and 12, Linguini Lancers should be at 15 and 13, and Titanium should be at 17 and 11. The admins just actually got a ruling on it and corrected the score reporting, but it hasn't been updated on standings. And I will definitely be DMing Monty about that.
Noted.
For sure.
That's a
And
good
I
point.
remember seeing that in Serious Suggestions. And I was kind of like, this seems like pretty clear cut and dry, right? Like one team, the player who is vouching for his team that from the Linguini Lancers, who realistically should have just taken the FF and moved on with this day, was really Jolie just exposed himself, talking about how he told his team point blank, hey, be quiet. We'll get through the game. We'll take this free win and we'll move on. He acknowledged that he did that in Serious Suggestions. And I'm not going to lie, that kind of ruins the spirit of the league a little bit. It kind of talks about the fair competitiveness that we have and the fact that we're supposed to be even across the board. But then we go ahead and we say, we're going to abuse the rules is kind of sad. I'm just putting out, free agent here, just putting out my mentality on it.
Well, I'm glad you said something, Boz, because I really do agree with a lot of what you said. I know I've been in situations where I've lost a game where the other player had that happen, and I've taken that loss. I didn't call it at the time. I let the game play out, and that's how things should be. But knowing that you have won a forfeit and just not calling it, I feel like there's some honor to that versus knowing that you should have forfeited the game and acknowledging that, but fighting it. That's something I don't really agree with.
Also, just like don't be weird, man. We're all here to play a game. It's a free league. Your record is kept because it's how you do. Like you don't get anything for winning like that one extra game. Like that's not going to be the difference more likely than not if you make in playoffs. Like and even if it were, like there's no reason not to talk about it. Just like with anything in life, right? Communication is extremely important. And in a league like this, man, where you got so many moving parts, it's the biggest thing, right? So withholding information on purpose and misrepresenting information is just a scummy thing to do, man. I don't know. I'm cool with calling it out.
150%.
Yeah. In the end, we're in the league to have fun. So it's just like, and when you're in that lobby, there's only potentially 6 of you there. So, you think people aren't watching, but the league's pretty big. A lot of talking in the league. So don't try and hide stuff. There's rules in place for a reason.
And then just on a more lighthearted note, I do want to give a shout out to what I think might be the best team name in RSC, Need for Speed at 15 and 13. That's a pretty good name right there from the bakery.
For sure, for sure. And as we're kind of getting through here, we're into the back three tiers. Elite, Mr. Rob, why don't you go ahead and walk us through the elite standings?
At a whopping 26 and 2 in first place, you have the Great Whites. Second, you got the Sloths, just a couple games back at 23 and 5, and then tied for third, you got two teams, the Ghastly Goombas and Azathoth at 21 and 7. 2 games behind them, you'll find the Finbacks with sole possession of fifth at 19 and 9, and then you got a two-way tie at sixth with the Quasars, yours truly, and the Geeky Ghouls at 18 and 10. Sole possession of eighth belongs to Vibranium at 17 and 11.
Yeah.
And then rounding out our top 10, we got two teams tied there with the Rottweilers and the Wendigos at 16 and 12.
Nice.
Yeah. And Great Whites actually just picking up their second loss on the season as they went 3-1 against Chef's Kiss on Monday this week. And Chef's Kiss, they're a team that needs those wins all the way down in 25th place at 10 and 18. Props them for taking the team off the leader, or for taking a game off the leaders.
Yeah,
For
definitely,
sure, and-
definitely. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, my bad. You can go. Go ahead, man.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, definitely not hard to do. They've been doing so well this entire season. So, Chef's Kiss, way to go. I mean, the Great Whites, they've been. You can see with their division and the division that they're playing right now, it's not the best. But for Chef's Kiss, all of a sudden to come out of nowhere and take a game off them, it was a crazy week for the results for Elite, definitely.
And I want to point out the Great Whites from Shark Attack have the same record as the Hammerheads. So like their rival and their elite team for the Shark Attack are killing it. 4 losses split between 2 tiers is an insane stat to hold for really any team, and it's kind of an indication of why Shark Attack are doing as well as they are as a franchise.
No,
Yeah,
absolutely.
Treco's done a great job with those 2 teams.
Yeah. I mean, speaking as someone from Elite, I see the standings and I'm going, must be nice for Great Whites because in my division and in the top 10, all 3 of my teams in my division are in that top 10, and it's been a battle. So the first round of division games was pretty tough, and to end the season, it's going to be probably even tougher. So I can see those last 3 match days deciding the division for us.
My road in Elite has been much simpler, and we play like 2 teams in the top 10 for the rest of the season. I will say Monday we have to play the Sloths, who are 23 and 5. We're going to have a sub for that game. He will be our rival double promo, Cloudy, getting his 3rd series. Really excited to see how he performs against one of the top teams in the tier. It should be a really good test. He's been grinding, improving super quickly. He's a beast, so that'll be a lot of fun. And just while we're here, got to give myself a pat on the back. I've been working really hard. I lead the tier in goals. Been here for like 4 seasons, so like to finally be making progress towards the top of the tier feels really solid. 18 and 10, whatever. We'll get there. Haven't gone 1-3 a single week though. First season match day.
For sure. Now, Rob, as you were just talking there, why don't you go ahead and continue? Get us into Master here.
I'm actually going to take that baton and pass it straight down to Yul Brenna because I feel like we should get him a little bit of time.
All right,
Hey,
yeah, that
fair
sounds
enough.
good. Let me head over.
Oh my God.
Sorry. You're good. All right, so let's head over to the master tier. So the Feta Forgers at 21 and 7 are tied for first place actually with the Blues at like I said 21 and 7. In third place you have the Basilisk 19 and 9, and then you have 2 teams tied for fourth place, Stampede and Orion at 16 and 12. Going into sixth place, you have 2 teams tied, Oblivion and Blackout at 15 and 13. And then rounding out the top 10 at 8th, 9th, and 10th is Glacier Mint, Tempest, and Helio Corpians. And that's respectively at 14 and 14, 13 and 15, and then 12 and 16, a little bit of a drop off there. So yeah, I mean, pretty much for me in this one, I think Matchup of the week has to be Hurricanes versus Fairies for match day 8. And you also have Orcas versus Beck in that tight. That was for Premier. For Master, you have Forgers versus Basilisk in a first versus third battle for match day 8. And then match day 9, you have Tempest. They are playing the Glacier Mint for that playoff spot. And so I think those are two things to look out for this week.
Yeah, and a 3-1 for the Basilisk could see them catapult above the Feta Forgers, or at least tie them at a, what's that, 22-10?
Some would say.
And a quick shout out to the big dog Lamone for following us on his both personal account and the RSC Solar account, guys. We finally made it.
Finally made it, man. We made it when we got our affiliation status. This is just icing on the cake at this point, you know. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Last week we had cake. If you haven't seen that, check out the VOD. But I just want to go ahead and shout out before we move on too far to the Tempest. They started out 1-7, right? They started out in the first week absolutely getting destroyed. 1-7. Now they've gone 12-8 in these last 5 weeks. So the fact that they're 13-15, definitely pay attention to the Tempest going forward because they're probably going to keep moving up that leaderboard.
Wow, yeah, that's impressive. And even down in 10th place as well, Spectre's starting off again 1-7, going 11-9. Those teams are looking to make up some ground, especially on a team like Stampede, who's unfortunately gone 9 for 20 in the last, 9 wins out of their last 20 matches. Sorry.
Yeah, and that's
fair.
That's kind of why I highlighted that Tempest Glacier Mint matchup. So, Glacier Mint hasn't been doing well. They're 9-11 in their last 5 matches. And then, like we said, Tempest, they're streaking. So they're both facing each other this week. You could see Tempest move into that playoff spot.
Yeah.
We're sitting here in absolute pain and misery with our silence. Why don't we go ahead and shift into, once again, a tier with at least some conferences. Let's go ahead and move on to Premier here. Yoel, why don't you take it away for us?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. So we've got Hurricanes at the top of the leaderboard, tied with Fairies at 20-8. In third place, you have Orcas at 18-10. And then you have a 2-way tie for fourth place, the Beck and Interstellar at 17-11. Going down to sixth place, you have the Reapers at 16-12. Seventh, Megalodons at 13-15. Gummy Bears and Capybaras tied for eighth place at 12-16. And then there's a tie for 10th place with Mangpo and Chargers at 8-20. Quite the drop off there.
Yeah, and I mean, quite the dominance by Solar as well. The top 5 all in Solar, all the way down to Interstellar in 5th at 17-11. They'd still be winning that Lunar playoff hunt with Reapers at 16-12 leading the pack for Lunar.
I am absolutely shook, right, that the top 5 are all Solar. Like, this is something we can all clearly agree that is not normal, right?
Yeah. This
Like,
is
I would be
very
salty if I'm 17-11, and which is a better record than anyone in Lunar has, and I'd be out of the playoff picture in Solar. Right, like that
Team
is
Beck and Team Interstellar, 17-11. To your point, they're not gonna at this point qualify for playoffs. But if they were in Lunar, they would be the best teams.
Yeah. And I mean, even the worst team in Solar, Capybaras at 12-16, they'd be tied for that last Lunar playoff spot. That's just insane.
That's insane.
Yeah, and looking at matchups for this week, I think I'd mentioned it but you had Hurricanes versus Fairies. So you have the first place teams facing off against each other. And then in match day 8, you also have that playoff spot in Solar. It's just insanely stacked. You have Orcas versus Beck. So you're kind of going to want to see, Peaceful for the Orcas, is pretty high up there in scoring, and his 2 teammates feeding those passes. Is it going to happen for them? Are they going to hang on to that top, that last playoff spot?
That's something we'll have to definitely keep an eye on going forward, especially going into this next week as we are crossing over the threshold for the halfway mark. But, I think that wraps up nicely really what we are looking at for the top 10 standings for your 9 tiers. As always, probably going to be our first segment going forward for most weeks here. Let's go ahead, though, and shift on over to your submitted clips with your exclusive 8 clips of the week. I chopped this video together Friday night, so don't give me too much of a hard time here, but go ahead and peep out these clips.
Diesel in this motherfucker. Bang your motherfucking head. Throwing toes in the block shit. Damn. Diesel in this motherfucker. Bang your motherfucking head.
That brings us out. Those are your 8 clips of the week here, as submitted by our RSC patrons into our The Pre-Jump Podcast Discord. For those of you who do want to vote, we're going to go ahead and open up the vote here in the Twitch chat. So go ahead and pop in ! And then vote in the number you'd like to vote for. That way we can get this going. You have about 20-30 minutes. I believe last week ran it for 20, but go ahead and vote. We'll find out who wins and gets the all-exclusive title of Clip of the Week champ in the Pre-Jump Discord. But as we're coming out of that here, that brings us into our next big segment. We're going to go ahead and talk about the deep dive for Contender. We've kind of been dodging the lower tiers here a little bit. We've really been focusing a lot on the mid tiers and the really kind of prospect through elite these last few weeks. So we're going to get some love here to Contender. We'll get this graphic pulled up here. In the pole position at 20-8, like we talked about before, we've got the Lanterns and the Zombies, both at 20-8 here. With 37 goals, we've got Nikon. I'm not even Nikon. That's where we're going to move on with. With 21 assists, we've got Tech 4. And with 46 saves, we've got Buckring. And, I'm just going to put it out there, Rob. As I'm looking over these best teams, it's kind of hard to decide, right? And I kind of figured, you being an opinionated man, you probably have a few opinions yourself here.
Absolutely. I think my biggest opinion that I got for this tier is that my guy, Tech 4, is going to have to be my MVP choice. First of all, you know, us GMs, top 2 in winning percentage for our franchise, we got to stick together, man. There's not that many like us. Second of all, you're a whopping 22-3, right? 22-3 is not a record to really be messed with, especially in a tier with this few teams, right? There's not that many people who can really take that down. 29 goals, 21 assists, 22 saves, the highest SPV of all qualifying players. And previously on our shows, we've discussed that some parts of MVP are off the field things, right? And it's hard to argue that there's anyone in the league who would be a better captain because there's not that many people who you can trust to put your team in a more winning position than him. Shout out the Go Metal writing on the
Yeah.
hum screen now.
Thanks for the producer for switching that around a bit for me. I tried to write it mirrored, but didn't get it quite right.
But yeah, Tech
Did,
4 is
did
my
I
MVP
put the
pick.
wrong? Did I put the? I did. I put the wrong. I put the lanterns and the zombies as the 20 and 8. Absolutely scuffed production on my end here.
It was
I didn't realize I was looking at Chally apparently when I put in the team standings.
You're
So
good.
I was kind of caught off guard looking back at this who I thought was the best team. But looking at contender, you know, it's hard not to shout out Dagon, right?
Yep.
They're 25-3, like you were talking about here. Tech 4, as I've talked about, I always bring up the fact that he mentioned he drafts players who can hit the ball, and that's his words exclusively. So it you know, totally understandable that we're seeing a lot of production out of his lower tier teams, but I'm kind of impressed that across the board, a lot of his lower tier teams are doing well. I'm not gonna lie here.
Yeah,
I'm not.
yeah,
Go ahead.
I had him at MVP too. I mean, the 1-2 punch of Shattuck and Tech 4, and their third man is really backing him up well. You know, I think he's playing that third man role really well, and you saw it in that series. I believe they just played Ionic, who is the other, like one of the other top teams. So, oh no, sorry, I think it was other earlier in the season, and you know, they shut down one of their top players. The guy had 0 goals, Dusty, and you know, you kind of got to look for Dusty to step it up in the next time they meet up, which I think is at the end of the month. So that's going to be a spicy matchup for contender in these next couple weeks, and yeah, we'll see if it keeps going. But it's a great team, and Tech 4 is doing really well.
So I guess I'll put it out there. Are we kind of all in agreement here that we think Dagon is the best team in contender? Like, does anybody have any other opinions, or are we all pretty much on the same page here?
Well, I mean, I do have a team in contender, and I did see one of my
Look,
players up there on the top stats of the week or top stats of the season so far. I just want to give a shout out to my guy Buckring, leading aluminum so far, doing pretty good. They started out not so great at 1-7, but they're making some improvements. We're now 9-11 through the last 5 match days. That's only going to keep going up, you know. But I did want to give a shout out to someone who is my MVP in contender, not one of my players, Nico Nee, the top points per game in all of contender, only at 14-14 right now, but he is leading his team, the Scooters, as hard as he possibly can, boasting a 96 IDR. And I mean, just looking down the list, none of his other teammates are above 50. That is some stellar MVP caliber performance right there from him.
well,
But
that was my MVP, right? 37 goals, 15 assists, 32 saves. Like clearly head and shoulders above the rest in scoring. Also shooting at a clip of 42.5%. So that was, I mean, I agree with you. That was my MVP here for the week for sure.
I think the Scooters just in general are kind of my dark horse team. You know, getting away from the best player, but you know, I don't want to skip ahead, but yeah, I think they just need to clean it up defensively. You can see their stats; they are very offensive, and but they don't face a lot of shots. But when they do, the Scooters aren't saving it. So I think it's telling me either some over aggression or maybe some bad defensive rotations. So they also end their season with Dagon and Samurai, who Samurai they're fighting for that playoff spot. So it's kind of like that'll be a great ending to the season for the Scooters if they can keep on doing what they're doing and you know get a little bit better. But that's a hell of an end to the season for them.
before we get onto the dark horse team here, Rob, did you? I can't remember. Did you get to talk about your MVP candidate?
Yeah,
for
Tech 4.
contender yet? Okay,
Tech
okay,
4.
cool. Just
Yeah,
making
Rob and I
sure.
agreed.
Oh, you guys agreed it's Tech 4. Okay. Well, my dark horse team for contender is going to be the Scooters team, but at the same time, I saw the same thing you did, right? I saw that the back end of their season is going to be a buzzsaw. And if they're going to make the playoffs, they're going to have to really, really grind it out. And if they don't, that back week's going to knock them out of the playoffs. I mean, it's win or die here.
And piggybacking off that, that's actually why he wasn't my MVP pick. Is a 14-14 record is fine, right? But if we're talking about, and I'm not saying he doesn't have the potential, right? This guy is leading the tier in points. He's leading the tier in goals. Their team is top 5 in every offensive stat, right? But if you look at defense, they are bottom 5 in almost every single one. And so I'm going to need to see them start locking it up. I'm going to need to see them start winning a few more games. And if those two things happen, not only do the Scooters become like a serious contender for the title, but then you're probably going to see Nico's case for MVP go through the roof.
For sure.
Yeah, I think it's kind of that saying of goals win games, but defense wins championships. So he's putting up the goals, but don't forget about that other side. Keep your rotation in mind, whether you're over aggression with demos or what have you. But they're giving up a lot defensively, not great. But you lock up that defensive side, and you see that with teams like the Great Whites, for instance, in another tier, where it's just like they're so solid defensively. Yes, they're good offensively, but that defense makes them the top team. So for Scooters, that's something you want to emulate, is that lockdown defense. It now all of a sudden your offense can flourish.
For sure. And speaking of defense, I mean, you definitely don't. It's a nice stat to have. Don't get me wrong. When you have the most saves in a tier, it's something though you kind of want to avoid getting, because it shows you're. I've made this comment like 50 million times on this podcast. If you're taking the most saves, you're probably getting shot on the most, which means you're not really dominating the midfield in the way that you'd like to do, and you're letting the opponents really push the pace in a way you'd probably not like to be. You'd probably like to be taking more shots than getting saves. It's one of the reasons why I personally could not, as a Metal homer for a long time, could not pick Metal as my quote unquote, dark horse team here.
Well, I did.
No
That's
offense
right.
to you, Hum. But I didn't really see anything that like blew my mind. Like, right, we talked earlier about how Ionic and Contender were they're in the league of their own. They're 7 games above third place, and then fourth place is a 3-way tie for 14-14. That was kind of my wild card for the weekend, but I really didn't see anything standing out outside of those that really caught my eye. I mean, maybe you guys saw something else, but this was kind of just it for me.
Well, I think the interesting point is, while you can actually turn the fact that there is nothing else into a talking point, because it is so, right now, the way that teams are performing on the field, Dagon and Ionic, as we're talking about, are just the 2 teams to watch, right? And that can change. I'm not saying it's going to stay that way, but, and with Dagon 3-1ing, as you said earlier in the season, like, it's kind of Dagon's race, right? Like if they go ahead, like they control their destiny for what it's worth, right? And so it's them, Ionic, and then kind of everyone else.
Yeah, absolutely. But because that solar side, that lunar side looks so strong, there's conferences. You have that solar side, which doesn't look great, but you have Devoured and Ice both playing each other this week. And then Ice faces Devoured. They play the Scooters. They play Haunted, my franchise, and then they play Dagon in their next 4 matches. So you have Ice, who's top of that conference, all of a sudden has top teams that they're playing in their next 4 matches. And so if Devour does well this match date against Ice, they have a little bit of an easier schedule. They have the chance to take that. So you also keep in mind on Lunar side, only one team can make it out of Dagon and Ionic. But to me, I'm looking at the dark horse of Devoured as well on that side because they picked up Angry Hermit, who they dropped earlier in the season, or I think like really early in the season, and they got beaten twice hard early in the season. Picked him up, and they haven't lost one match day since.
I do
That's
want to point out,
impressive.
Ryan Awesome pointed out that I'm wearing sunglasses and my monitor is too bright because you can see the clear as day reflection in it. I don't think he realizes I also look at Discord in light mode. That mint color is such a beautiful like setup.
Oh.
So everybody else who doesn't like light mode, you can come fight me.
I would, getting back to contender, I have two final points that I want to make about the tier, which is that number one, Ionic and Dagon, as I were talking about, all 6 of their combined starters are top 12 in SBV right now. So it's not a one-man show on either of those teams, right? You don't get to those records like that. And as Yul Brennan called out earlier, the third man on Dagon is actually, he was the 4th man on the team that won contender last season. Sugar Biscuit is an absolute monster, right? He's been working a lot with the guys who carried that team. In the off season, he came into this one with the mindset that he wanted to be that guy, and he's going out and proving it. So it's shout out that guy. Shout out Sugar.
Yeah. I definitely want to shout out to Sugar. He's playing that third man wall really well. I think in the match against Ionic, he had like a 60% shooting percentage. So he's cleaning up what the other two are doing up front, and he's getting the easy goals. But if you don't do that, you don't score. And he was helping out a lot.
For sure.
Absolutely.
And unless anybody else does anything else here, I feel like we've all kind of come to an understanding of where we think contender stands, right? We're all kind of in the same boat here. Okay. Well, before we move on, just want to give a shout out to our latest follower, QX5Z here. So that puts us at roughly 112, which for a lot of you who don't know, I just want to give a big shout out to the community here. Before we affiliated with RSC, we were, Ryan is awesome. Thank you. Ryan, awesome. Thank you. 113. We were only at 18 when we affiliated with RSC. So in the span of the last 5 weeks, we've grown from 18 to 114 with RL Jester here. So, I mean, obviously, real solid, real good growth.
I love
here.
you, Jester.
I just want to give a big shout out to the community and thank you for your support.
He's mine.
But let's go ahead and pop in here to our next little segment. We've got Mr. Rob, your trivia questions about RSC.
All right. So, starting us off. So, as everyone knows, we had Cake as our guest last week. So we're gonna go with some season 1 of RSC themed trivia.
Oh boy.
So
I'm out.
for you guys, oh my goodness! Shout out Chulin for gifting a sub. That's the goat right there, actually.
Hey.
Thank you, Chu.
Anyway, in RSC's first season, how many tiers were there, and what were they?
I really hate that you reached out to me to make these graphics, and I can't remember the answer to this question.
I think there were 4 or 5.
Yeah, I'm gonna guess 5. Go ahead.
I know they had Premier, Major, Minor, and Challenger, but I don't know if they had Prospect or if it was named something else like Amateur at the time.
Hannon guessed 6. Just putting it out there for everybody who can't hear. Our producer Hannon guessed 6 here. I seriously made the graphic for this, and I legitimately cannot remember the answer Rob texted me. I'm just gonna go with 5 because I feel like that's a good mid ground.
I think I'm gonna go with 5 too. Like you said, there's Premier, Master, Major, Minor, and I want to say Contender, but maybe it was called something else.
All right, so we have our 5 from Boss, we have our 6 from Hennand, we have our 5 from Yol, we have 5 from Chulane, and
I'm gonna go 4.
I'm
gonna go 4 to be different.
Alrighty,
I'll be
in
unique.
3, 2, and 1, the answer is 4. It is Challenger, Minor, Major, and Premier, and Hum actually got all of them correct. I'll say it. Yeah.
Wow,
When you listed
look
them.
at this,
so that's
man.
a crazy performance.
All my stuff finally.
That's crazy. I really love the fact that I was just sitting there guessing it for the first time, as if I didn't make that.
Alrighty, well, moving on to the second question. Who led all of RSC in goals in season 1, and how many was it? And what
Cake
tier, if
and
you want to guess
69.
that too?
Cake, 69 goals and Challenger.
Did you
That's
look?
my
Did you
goal.
do you know all the answers to these?
No,
Like, am I
that's a
missing
complete
something?
guess.
Okay, because you sounded very confident in what you
I
just
have
said
no
right there.
idea.
I have no idea how to respond to that.
That's a complete guess. Swag, as they
69
call it,
goals?
scientific wild ass guess.
I've no idea, but I always go with someone who's been around forever. I'm gonna say Anthage somehow led all of led goals for season 1.
It's a valid guess, man. He got like 3-time MVP. Like
Yeah.
that makes sense. So we
Yeah.
got how many goals are you guessing, Gil?
Ooh, gosh, I don't know how long I'm gonna guess 62.
So we have 62.
Oh, in a
I can't
64 game
guess.
season? Ooh,
I can't
yeah.
guess on this one. Somebody in chat just jogged my memory, and I physically can't guess on this one.
No one in chat is correct.
Also,
Hannond is guessing Crazy Vulpix with 64. So, boss, you are the last one to guess. If you're right, then you're right.
Really
No,
quickly,
no,
just from
somebody-
chat, we have Tulane guessing Memlo or Primed, Hecka guessing Speedy, and Jester guessing
I
J-Melly.
can't guess, Rob, because I physically had my.
All
Yeah.
three of those are old-time people as well.
Alrighty. Well, I lied. Someone in chat is correct. It is Hecka. Nope, Hecka's right. It's Speedy. Get wrecked.
Wow.
And he was from the wheelchairs. He had 85 goals in Premier, and he had 3,000 more points than everyone else. So the dude was just like better than
3,000?
Yeah, dude was just better than everyone else in RSC season 1 by like a mile.
Bro, what?
So
Wow.
All right, that's
That's
okay.
impressive.
And moving on to the third and probably greatest question that I've come up with for the day. We normally have another man on the podcast by the name of T-Sant. He's in Rival.
God.
What do we think his peak is in twos, and has he hit GC?
This is like such a flame moment because I don't, Rob. I'm just saying if this could be such a flaming moment.
I'm going to say yes because, T-Sant really believe in him as a player. He's better than me.
So we got yes from Hum. What do you think his twos peak is?
What's GC?
1435.
1436.
Okay, noted. Boss, what are you going with here?
I know the answer to this one.
Noted. Sounds good. Yul, what do you think?
All right. I'll say he hit GC because I don't know. There's I think people that rival players can hit GC. I think no problem. I'm gonna say 1450.
Noted.
And production guesses. Yeah, you got it, Rob.
We got both Slider, my teammate, guessing that 1422 peak and never hitting GC, and then Hannond is guessing that he did not reach GC, and if he did, he was carried. Fair enough. Valid guesses. The answer is he has hit GC, and Hum was the closest with peak. He was 1 MMR off. It is 1437.
Oh, so close.
Look, I just want to point out there, Rob, when you sent me the question to make the graphic for it, I'm sitting there going, please, for the love of God, let me know he hit GC. Because if he didn't, that'd be such a, hey, just a friendly reminder, T-Sant, you weren't good enough to hit GC last season. Just putting it out in front of 40 audience members.
He made it by a whopping 2 MMR. So that, shout out him.
So did he get his rewards too? Did he get the 10 wins?
No. I'm going to look it up right now.
No, he did not. There's no chance.
Yeah, that would be difficult if that's your peak. You would have to bounce back and forth.
T-Sant is single-handedly the reason that Psionics and Epic have shifted 2's ranking back like three whole ranks.
I'm also not
Single-handedly the
going to look
reason why I lost 283 on my MMR and twos. God.
That wraps up Rob's RSC trivia for the day.
You know, and Rob, I do want to give you a good shout out here. I'm really thankful that you put in some real solid work into these questions and making it lively. Just wanted to, let you know I very much appreciate what you do here.
Well, thanks, boss. It's a fun thing, and I'm glad to have my own segment.
Of course, of course. But
Super fun.
we'll go ahead and shift in here to our last segment of the night, our smallest but not our least, Mr. Tier Amy. Obviously 8 teams, not 10. Couldn't even give a shout out to the top 10. Had to give a shout out to all 8 Amy teams when we went over the standings here. Let's get this graphic pulled up here. I believe I made this one right. I'm pretty sure I had Amy team done proper. Cathilla in the lead at 19-9. Obviously, we talked about that being pretty insane. Not a lot of parity here from Amy. There's a 2-way tie for the leaders in goals in Amy. It's kind of crazy. Both have 35. We're gonna have God, we have Furion from Metal, but at the same time we've got Your Girl Is My Side Hoe from Cathilla. And then leading the league in assists, we've got Eagle 20, and then leading the league in saves, we've got Eagle 20. So for sure, not a whole heckin' lot of parity here, but outside of the great name, anybody else got a different team outside of Cathilla that is their best team? Hum, I would love to hear what your best team is.
Oh yeah, Brass all the way. They're gonna be winning that championship. I'm telling you here. You heard it here first. Brass. They are really just grinding it out together. Furion and Strays are obviously the two star players on that team, with Timo and Mookie coming in behind them a little bit. But Furion and Strays are obviously, we talked about Furion, 35 goals in just 20 games so far, or sorry, 27 games so far, which is honestly pretty impressive. Your Girl's My Sido has played 28 games. So if we go on a goal per game ratio, Furion taking home that golden wheel for me. And Sterazer as well, chipping in with 25 goals, or 24 goals. But if you look at these guys and you look at their stats too, between them, they have 59 goals, but they also have 61 saves. So these are two-way guys. Like, they can do it all. Saves, goals, shots, assists. I mean, I'm really, really proud of Kiwi for that team that he put together, and I think that they're honestly going to go all the way.
For sure. Rob, do you have a different team that you believe is the best team in the tier right now?
I think I love the homerism, right? And I think you make a lot of good points as to why that team could be, right? Like, I don't think that that's necessarily wrong, but I think that if you're looking at the numbers right now, Kilo with the Mythos just like is really head and shoulders above everyone else. They're first in record. They've got one of the better names in RSC. Your Girl Is My Side Hoe. First in goals, second in saves, or second in assists, third in saves, first in shots. Their team's in first, an SPV over 100. I mean, there's like a dark horse team you can think about, right? Like, I don't know, Sacrificed. I think they might be pretty good. They got an outstanding player in Blossom. 31 goals, 12 assists, 31 saves. Fourth in SPV with a 75. And as Yul Brenna mentioned earlier, defense wins championships, and they're top 3 in every defensive metric. But they're actually dead last in both shots and assists. So there is no passing and there is no movement in their offense. And if they can figure that out, despite being not particularly close in record to these top teams, right, they've shown this elite upside, right? So it'll be interesting to follow.
Advice for them: backboard is free real estate in amateur. I would say so. Yeah, I mean, obviously, Cathilla doing really well. I do like the 1-2 punch of Brass, and that makes me a little more excited for them. So definitely, my dark horse is settle down, but it's house salads in last place. It's yes, they're in last place, but they're only like 5 games out of first place. And they just picked up Stick, who played for their last match, and they won 3-1. So it's like, can they turn the season around? They're 5 games out of playoffs. It'll probably be fun to watch for them. They're kind of my dark horse a little bit there. It's kind of a fun one to go with.
I gotta
Rob, you
chime
looked
in.
a little. I was gonna say you looked a little excited down there. What you got? What's going on?
So I didn't know that they had picked up Stick. Stick is the GOAT. I had him on my Miami teams for the last 2 seasons, and then so I was an AGM. This is my first official full season as a GM. So as if you don't know how it works, seniority gets more teams. So because I was a first season GM, I got prospect through elite, and I was even lucky to get prospect. So contender and Amy so far away, I didn't get my team. So unfortunately, I had to let him go. Stick is a franchise guy. He is really, really good. He hates using ball cam, but the dude is just a monster for Amy. So I think he's like 50. He's a beast, dude. I love Stick. And he's going to, at least make that team better. He's a monster.
That
So for
is
sure,
hilarious. I love an old guy playing in RSC. As a older guy myself, you see my kid in the background. Like I love seeing an older guy in RSC.
My dad has a 1350 peak. I'm trying to get him in the game, in the league.
Whoa.
for sure. I want to point out my MVP for the tier and my dark horse team are actually on the same group of people here. My MVP for Amy is actually from Elastic. They're 14-14. I believe Raichu is the best all around player and really a big part of why they're winning with 31 goals and 35 saves. They're really spreading the field in a very positive way, doing the best they can. But I think that they're going to be the dark horse team going forward. They just recently acquired a coach that became a free agent and has a lot of time on his hands. So I think for sure this team is going to be able to go forward as just a better team. I just get some good coaching in. Just saying.
That's a little bit of homerism from what's that there, coach over there, Boz?
Well, I don't want to say no. Hold on. Hey, yeah, you're right. You're right. Look, I had to do something with my time. I, was stepping away from playing. And it was what it was. But I know Casca Reborn, big friend of mine. I've known him for a while now. He's on the Amy team, and I figured if I'm gonna do anything, I might as well coach. At least try to be a part of the league still. So for sure, I'm gonna be around that team. I feel like I'm okay. So maybe I could pass something on to these Amy players. Who knows? We'll see how it goes.
Really quickly, I'm gonna go close my door by request of everybody. I don't care. I'll do it.
Close your door.
Someone said someone said the only thing that wasn't symmetrical in anyone's camera was that Hum's closet door was open.
Not symmetrical, buddy. I've got one fireplace on one half of my stream. What do they mean by not symmetrical? There's only one.
You don't have two fireplaces?
It's not even in the middle. It's on to the left.
Which we still haven't seen the fireplace lit, as everybody's mentioned.
Eventually, one of these streams I'll have it on. I think I had it lit when I did one of the casting nights, but my God, man, symmetrical. How dare they? How dare they make that their reason?
Oh well, probably better anyways. No more ghosts looking back at me during the stream. If anybody of you saw anybody back there, please send me a DM. I might have someone living in my closet.
Wow. But I just want to just now that we're getting back to the conversation here, I think the Elastic, honestly, from what I've watched them play on stream, I watched them play against Faye live. Faye's obviously rebounding pretty hard these last couple of weeks, but for sure, Elastic show a lot of tendencies that, with some minor adjustments, like maybe some really good pathing, they're going to be really solid. Their rotations aren't bad. It's just kind of their boost management can really turn things around and make them a great team.
Yeah, I mean, and one oh sorry about my dogs, but one spot outside of that playoff hunt is the Rollers, and they have a pretty solid all-around squad. No one's really the standout on that team just yet. But if they can find that consistent starting three among their four players, if they can get it going, who knows if they can take that spot, because they're only one game back.
For sure. I think that's something I like about Amy is like the playoff contention. There's 3 teams within 3 games, right? There's 3 teams that could in a match night make one solid push and take a playoff spot. And I like to see that in a tier. I personally like to see a lot of teams having contention. Rob, being a fake GM that you are, as Hannon always says, obviously you're not a GM really. Is there a dark horse team that you're kind of paying attention to that you're really excited to see for?
Yeah, first, before I get into that, I would like to say shout out Sierra Lover 6969 for cheering with 30 bits.
Yeah,
I think that's what those are. I also stream on Twitch. But yeah, I mentioned it in passing earlier, but Sacrificed from Destined got a, let's see, what is their exact record? They are only 12-16 right now, but they have, again, that player Blossom, who is 4th in SBV with a 75, 31 goals, 12 assists, 31 saves, putting up numbers. Again, that whole team was top 3 in all the defensive metrics. But they're dead last again in both shots and assists. So that's the one that had no ball movement. If they are able to turn that around, they have one of the highest upsides of any team in the tier. They actually play defense, and that is very rare for an amateur team.
Nice.
Oh, thanks for the sub, Boz.
Live on stream, you just watched me sub my own channel. Like, let's go. I am glad. I don't. Does anybody else have anything else to talk about for Amy before I kind of segue into some random nonsense?
I do actually.
Okay, let's talk about like your thing before I start talking about nonsense.
Cool. I would like to say that this MVP candidate that we always talk about, that we're talking about, your girl is my side hoe, within about 2 weeks, 3 weeks after numbers locking, hit 11-15 in threes and 11-88 in twos. And so both of those numbers are prospect up to challenger, right? So you've heard me whine about numbers committee a million times, and there was a whole discussion about it, and it is what it is, right? But I think it's interesting to note that sometimes if you are able from a GM perspective to find the tracker that's an outlier even after the season starts, that's a way to build a team. Maybe put a positive spin on it.
For sure. And I, totally didn't see the same communication that this came from. But personally, I wonder how much that follows the competitive integrity that our league really embodies, right? Like, I think they increased by 312, as I remember the number right off the bat. So for sure, they're not tier breaking. They look to be competitive with the rest of their tier, but at the same time, it's like, was that wrong? Was it wrong to, after the season starts, spike up as if you were quote unquote like a Smurf account? And it's something to definitely be discussed. It's definitely something. I don't think it's going to be a good discussion today, but I definitely think it's something that should be discussed, maybe for numbers,
I would like to say, just piggybacking off that to kind of conclude my thoughts on it, is that I'm not saying that this player is smurfing or that they were necessarily misplaced, but simply from a discussion standpoint, I think we would be missing something on the tier if that were not to be included.
For sure.
Yeah, and I mean that just speaks to the overall and in a positive aspect of it, the competitiveness that this league brings out the best in a lot of people. And so, there are cases of amateur players gaining 2, 3, even 400 MMR in their first season in RSC. And I think that's one of the better things about the league. It is a for-fun league, but, in your first season in the league, I know for me, at least, and a lot of players that I've talked to, you really experience just a huge MMR boost.
Yeah,
Followed by a very long plateau.
Not only that, but I think there's also, I mean, this is from when I first joined, when you first join RSC, and sometimes when you're a lower rank, you're playing on console, and when you switch from console to PC,
Mhm.
you're going to gain an MMR jump just based off of that, just the frames per second, right? And so there could also be that aspect of like people jump MMR, they join a league, they get a little more competitive, maybe they buy a PC if they're playing on their PlayStation, and then boom, they jump MMR that way. And so it couldn't be it can be a potential smurfing, but there's some times where it's just like you get serious about a league, you get a PC, all of a sudden you're on PC playing at 144, and all of a sudden you jump 100 MMR. So it just everything feels smoother. So there could be that aspect of the game. I don't know. For the lower divisions, but sometimes that happens. But yeah, this league also just makes you better. Your first season that you join, you get better at comms, you get better at a lot of stuff for those lower tiers. It matters a lot, and you can get better really quickly.
Hate to butt in here, but shout out DJ McKibben for subbing with Prime.
Yeah.
Thank you for the sub, man.
Make sure you
did
all
you have
use
anything
that
else?
free Prime substitution
sorry.
or subscription. Sorry.
No, you're good, man.
He immediately follows it up with hum sucks. Thank you, random stranger.
So something I kind of wanted to segue into. I'm really glad that we're getting around to talking about Contender and Amy. It's something that they've been asking for. It's a little bit of love on our end. And I'm
Shout
really
out
glad we're getting
Pineapple for also subbing with Prime. That's the homie.
crazy.
Thank
Could
you
have
guys for
shouted that
support.
out in like 10 seconds after I finished my thought, man. What the heck?
And
No,
Aggie
I was gonna
too.
say,
Oh my gosh. Sorry to cut you off again, boss, but we got
wow,
another
what a
sub. Thank
I'm
you,
never gonna
Aggie.
I'm never
Hype
gonna
train. Yeah,
Interrupt
there
Boz.
you go.
Interrupt Boz to
Subtrain.
talk about the subtrain.
I was just gonna say for sure, we really feel like we don't give enough love to the lower tiers as a whole, and I'm glad that we finally get a chance to actually talk about it on the podcast and just kind of shout out the players that we've been seeing perform well. Hopefully give you guys some love. You're the lifeblood of the organization for sure. Good GMs draft in the AMI contender prospect area, develop them up through the tiers, and bring them into loyal franchise people. And for sure, it makes for a great franchise as a whole. So I just wanted to shout out and say thank you, guys, for joining the league and being a good part of it.
And a shout out to Aggie for gifting a sub as well.
Yeah. Thank you, Aggie.
You see how I waited that time, Boz? I got you.
Yeah, I thank you, Rob. I thank you for your patience. My God, man. It's crazy. Week 8.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm still kind of shook with how far we've gotten at this point.
Yeah, pretty much halfway. Yeah, halfway through the season for Amy. So we're coming along.
Yeah, getting down to the business end of the season for a couple of teams, especially those rollers sacrificed and the house salads that you guys pointed out earlier. Coming into the need a sweep to get back in.
I'm going to interrupt you because I interrupt for this, but that was 5 gifted subs, actually. Holy.
I'm fine with that.
cuddly
Thank
from
you
Time
so
for Skeeton.
much.
Get
Yeetin'
interrupted.
Skeetin'.
Anytime you guys want me to interrupt somebody, just subscribe and I will interrupt anything that they say immediately to call you out. They do not get to talk, so
that'll
don't
do
worry
it
about
every
it.
time. Oh my.
Thank you, Yeetin.
I think though, Aggie sucks to suck. I made you captain and apparently bailed, so just deal with it, I guess. I'll catch you. If you want coaching, man. I'm still around, bro. I promise. I'm still there. If he's still in chat. See what had happened was that's wild. That's wild. Does anybody else have anything really for Amy before we kind of wrap things up, or anything else that they've seen really in the league that was kind of like a big thing they want to talk about?
I don't think we've mentioned the app on the podcast yet.
yeah.
RSC has an app now. It's really, really cool. It's just called RSC or Rocket Soccer Confederation, maybe in the App Store. There's links to it in announcements. It's dope. You can see your own stats, the league, shows you your name, makes you feel really official for being a part of it. So highly recommend getting involved and giving that a download. Supports the league, supports us.
Who developed the app? Do you know?
It's somewhere in announcements, probably notices. Let me find it so I can give him a
So
shout.
I know somebody spearheaded it, and I just want to give him a shout out before we
I
wrap up the
think
stream.
it was Blister who spearheaded it. I'm not entirely certain about that though, so don't quote me or clip it.
I know it's made. It's made looking up stuff for the deep dive.
All
Really easy
right.
from my
Thanks
end.
to the hard work of Blister and specifically Shane 9B3.
Okay.
Shout out you guys.
Yeah, no, I love the app. It's I mean, you look there instead of the website for sure. The app is really good, and especially like for a lot of us that when we're coming into our matchup, you're like, all right, wait, what's going on with the team? What with the team I'm facing, and you can kind of check out their stats, see who's the players to look out for, and different things like that. Aside from going on ball chasing or what have you, but it actually has a lot of useful information. So definitely check it out.
Games played, points per game, demos, saves, all the
there
basic
I am.
and advanced stuff. Yeah. There's Hum. He's the dog, actually.
Yeah,
there.
that's me.
You got
Got
that
that
dog.
dog in me.
Yes, sir.
Oh man. No, but for sure, great call out, Rob. Obviously, something we need to shout out. That app has been a tremendous help for me, at least getting everything scheduled out for the podcast.
Yeah, super helpful for research.
Oh, for sure. Now, as we're kind of wrapping up things here, for anybody who is interested, the RSC 2's season-ending stream will be tomorrow at none other than ThePreJump. You're going to be able to tune in tomorrow night at 9 p.m. EST. You can catch myself, Boss Radala, and Mr. Roberts 7977, the not GM of the Cosmos. And then Hannon, as always, will be producing for us. Hannon produced tonight. Fantastic guy, as as he is putting in the work. Can't see him, but his bald head is somewhere. So just want to give a shout out to everybody involved here. Give a good shout out here to Hum for the first time ever being on the podcast. Same thing with Mr. Yul Brenna in the bottom left corner down there. But for those of you tuning in, this has been week 8 of the podcast. A lot of weird stuff going on with the boxes. Got it. For those of you turning in, once again, my name has been Boss Radala. Joining us back again has been our permanent member and effectively planted roots here, Mr. Rob. We've got Hum, the People's Champ, coming on for the first time ever. Yul Brenna for the first time ever as a guest star. And for everyone who tuned in, have a good night.
Yeah, have a good one, everyone. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Losing my objective slowly out of sight. Just